So, hello and welcome to Media Musings. For all of those who are lurking in the chat and or watching in the future.
Cool. A belated Brave New Year to you. Don't worry,
Yes.
no one counts the first week anyway. We know you're all hungover. I say as ring goes for the Gatorade.
Yeah.
Cool. So,
And hello, Greg.
hey Greg, hey Scummer.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, never mind.
Yeah.
Cool. This movie. Before we start proper.
Well,
can
before we start before we start starting, if that makes sense. Just so no one is ambushed by the Twitter trending. As far as I can tell, the channel Punching Bag didn't do anything, and the witch is not dead. But it basically looks to be the same old jabs at JK.
Cool.
So feel free to ignore that if you see the channel Punching Bag pop up on your trending.
Cool. Right. Before we get into this movie proper, can I have 5 minutes just to, wildly fangirl about the animation of her hair?
Sure.
That shit holds up! That shit is amazing! What the hell? Where the hell were they hiding the animators capable of that? Guys, yeah. Wow. It so holds up. The animation on this movie holds up really well. I just... Yeah. They're pretty.
I mean, what do you expect? It's Pixar.
I know, but...
They're...
Yeah.
I
will say you can sort of see where the Pixar and Disney executives were arguing over this movie.
Yeah.
Which we'll get to, I'm sure.
Something about, Pixar invented cinematic 3D animation with Toy Story all the way back in 1993.
Yeah.
And has basically been continuously setting the bar every year afterwards.
Yeah, they took the record in the first run and they kept it.
Yeah.
But yeah, the beautifully animated movie, as you can see from my green screen this week, is a shot from it. If you've seen... I want to say something, and this is going to be controversial. Let me just check if there's anyone Scottish in the audience. No, I don't think so. If there is, I'm English. Don't shoot.
No, I thought you were gonna say I'm Yorkshire. Don't shoot.
Unfortunately, to the Scottish, I'm English first, but I am Yorkshire, so I don't like London either. So we're on the same side. This movie, to me, bearing in mind with the caveat it is animated, but to an extent, this movie does for Scotland what Lord of the Rings did for New Zealand. This movie is it's a tourist advert for Scotland and the beautiful scenery of Scotland. If you look at the way some of the animation is compared to real images of some of the locations they used, it's spot on. It is absolutely beautiful. I will get to Scotland one day, preferably in the summer. I don't think anyone can get to Scotland in the winter. That's probably why there's a wall there now.
Also, Brave is as far as I know, as far as I can recall, Brave is one of the least stylized Pixar movies.
Yeah, it's really it's very smooth to look at. Folks, I'm not an art major. I'm not an animation major. I don't know the technical terms for this shit.
Yeah.
It's not stylized. It looks very. It almost does just look like someone put a cartoon filter over Scotland.
Yeah.
That is literally what it looks like. They just basically turned up the brightness, the contrast, and the colour saturation on Scotland and filmed it. It's pretty much what it looks like.
And on your disclaimer, I'd probably say you're more Scottish than a certain resident of Edinburgh.
Yeah, but they're only based in Scotland for tax reasons, so we don't talk about them. You know what they say. That listen, some people move to Scotland.
Yeah.
Some people are called to Scotland, and some people are so Scottish they'll live anywhere but Scotland. Your Connerys and all them, they do anything for Scotland. They love Scotland. They except live there.
Now the real question is, how do you take your porridge?
Yeah. But yeah, established, I'm not Scottish, but I do think the scenery of Scotland is beautiful.
Yeah.
But the thing with Scotland is, if you believe in a god, and let's say hypothetically for a moment you do, it's like God took all the best bits of the rest of the world. Like, you've got the Yorkshire grass, and you've got the Montana's sky, and you've got the lakes of Italy, and you've got the the most beautiful parts of the world, and put them in this tiny little haven, but then threw a dirty, scraggy blanket over it with the weather. So this is my problem with Scotland. It's beautiful. I want to go there, but the weather. I'm from Yorkshire, and even I look at Scotland like, how do you people live?
Yeah.
Like, I will go out in the snow in a miniskirt, and like, I've done that multiple New Year's Eves, ring can attest.
Yeah.
But I don't know how Scotland does it. Especially given what we know about the fact that there's nothing under the kilts. Like, you win.
Yeah.
You win. You're like Yorkshire turned up to 11 in Scotland. You really are. You are just so badass. All respect for Scotland and the Scottish people.
Yeah.
But yeah, this movie for me really is. It's as close as you can get to a live action sort of tourist attraction.
Yeah.
And still be animation. Like, this movie makes me want to see Scotland.
Yeah.
And for some reason I say the word Scotland with a slightly Scottish accent. Yeah. I don't know why, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just beautiful, and you let me fangirl for 10 minutes, and I only asked for 5, so I'm gonna stop now.
Yeah. Also, I really like how so this is the only Pixar movie to be in the Disney princess canon, right? I was gonna say it was the first movie after that was established, but there were 2 before it, Tangled and Princess and the Frog. But So I had to amend this to this is the only Pixar movie in the Disney Princess canon, and it's basically taking like two fingers up at like every other at all the Disney Princess tropes for the
It
most part.
is. It does that, but also you can see where the Disney executives at the end went, shit, we can't tell little girls that they're allowed to think for themselves. Oh no, what do we do? Clobber an ending onto this that just, like, you know, uh, uh, we'll get there. We will get there. I'm going to put a pin in it. I'm going to put a pin in it. I'm gonna be ring and put a pin in it.
Yeah.
But yeah. Okay, so the first thing I took note of watching this movie was one of the tropes that they're quite clearly saying to Disney.
Yeah.
This is a happy, healthy family. Parents have a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful to watch. It really is. It's really sweet. You know. So that was the first thing I noticed. I also immediately, and I'm sure everyone did because it's a major plot point, picked up on the disconnect between father and mother.
Yeah.
And the parents, it comes across as light-hearted squabbling in the beginning, but it is very ominous, and you do know, especially as an adult watching it, this is gonna escalate.
Yeah. Also, you get the feeling that Eleanor isn't exactly from the area.
Yeah, she's clearly married into the area.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting.
So what I'd say probably happened, and this is just me guessing off of, context, from the movie, and of course this is all years before the movie takes place, is what happened was Vikings invaded. The four clans got together, and Fergus managed to levy more troops because he probably made a marriage alliance with with another British kingdom down south.
See, that doesn't track.
Well,
because the mother knows the local legends.
Yeah.
I see what you're getting at in that she doesn't seem to fit the local culture. But if you notice, Merida and her mum are the only women in this film, aside from the maids.
Yeah. Well, also she speaks Gaelic, so
yeah.
So if she was a foreign, well, if she was a diplomatic Mary, which I still think she is, that was probably actually Ireland.
Quite possibly. Although she's definitely not an Irish accent, and Scottish and Irish Gaelic are different, I think.
Well, also her Scottish accent is the least thick.
Yeah, no, she's very clear.
Yeah, and it's the softest. And also in regards to not knowing or knowledge of local legends and customs and such, I present to you the fact that this would have been before Merida was born, and thus years before the events of this movie. And two, I present Catherine the Great of Russia.
That's okay. I mean, it's doable. I mean, she gives me sort of and I hate to say this, she gives me kind of Mary Queen of Scots vibes, insofar as she's more Scottish than Scotland, even though she's never actually, like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
She's kind of got this historical image of her of being more Scottish than Scotland and, you know, Scottish to the death. But she was raised in the French court and didn't even see Scotland until she was in her 20s.
Yeah.
And then suddenly took on a Scottish accent and started, you know, decided she was going to take on the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's entirely possible there's something like that with Eleanor. I think more likely is that she is Scottish, but that she's probably from one of the clans that was not part of that initial grouping there, or quite possibly there is, because the clan they're in, their own clan, the sword and the knot.
Yeah.
I'm going to get a bit esoteric and a bit, you know, symbolism here.
Yeah.
The Celtic knot with the sword. Putting aside the Alexander jokes for a moment, because that's not what it... The idea of being tied together by the sword makes me wonder if the backstory of their clan is not supposed to be two clans coming together under one name and marrying together under one name.
Yeah.
Which, you know, if Eleanor's the last of her line and she's the girl, she loses her name when she goes into marriage, but she brings the power and the prestige of her clan with her.
Yeah.
That's entirely possible as well.
Also, she also stands out in the fact that, well, one, her elegance and manners make her stick out like a sore thumb, as well as the fact she's the only one with dark hair.
Yeah. And again, more indication that she's probably not local.
Yeah.
Quite possibly Northern English from a, you know... She might even be a Yorkshire lass, you never know.
Yeah.
You know, something like that. Although her Scottish accent belies that comment a little bit. Yeah. Trigger warning if you're reading the chat for historically questionable methods of consummating royal marriages. Yeah. It's an interesting take on Eleanor. She's obviously... I don't think she's not local insofar as location. I just think she doesn't fit in with her husband's life. And it is very telling in this movie that the only two women of any consequence are Meridia and her mother.
Yeah.
Like, where are the wives of all these chieftains? Where are the, you know, the daughters, the girlfriends? It's a very male-dominated society.
To be fair, we're talking medieval Europe. Yeah. And, you know, if you're going out with your fighting men to, you know, give, you know, to show off suitors, you're probably not bringing the wives along.
Okay, but not a parent, so yeah. I say this as a hypothetical, but as a mother, do you not want to see the girl your son may be married to?
Yeah.
Do you not want to keep your husband and make sure he behaves and doesn't cause a diplomatic incident? Which is a definite problem. Yeah. That should... these men need minders. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's the lack of women in this is just so obvious and so it's grating because it's kind of irritating that all of Meridia's really great personality quirks are essentially masculine.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like it's gone the opposite way. Disney used to tell girls, you know, be pretty and look nice and smile, and now it's gone the opposite way of that sort of extreme phase we all had as AFAB teenagers. We all had, where for a while anything girly was bad.
Yeah.
Because we understood that our culture and the way we've been raised doesn't give any dignity to anything girly. Doesn't, you know,
Yeah.
if she does her hair and makeup, she must be a bimbo. She can't possibly have brains and beauty. And
Yeah.
I don't like how this film, even though it appears on the surface to be challenging that, does lean into it.
Yeah, because Meridia's very much obviously closer to her father than she is to Eleanor.
Yeah, she's a daddy's girl. She's a daddy's girl and she's a tomboy. And we can see that right from the start of he gives her a bow for what's probably his second or third birthday.
I'd say maybe fifth.
Yeah. So somewhere around there, you know.
Yeah.
She's very young.
Yeah, like old enough to be moving competently.
Yeah, this is why I said second or third, because I've seen 2 and 3 year olds at sort of at that stage of development.
Yeah.
And the first thing he does is put a bow in her hand. And it is very telling of his values that he puts a bow in her hand from the moment she's old enough to have one.
Yeah. Though also it's telling, you know, that she asked to shoot his first.
Yeah. She asked to shoot his. So she's already absorbed these values of archery and bow.
Yeah.
And yet, even though she carries a sword, she never uses it. Even when she goes to defend later on in the film, she takes someone else's sword.
Yeah.
If you look at it. And she doesn't wear a sword when she's in that fancy dress.
Yeah.
But she is she's a tomboy, first and foremost. She's what my generation would call a tomboy. But she's never presented in a way that goes any deeper than that. I will just point something out as a former tomboy.
Yeah.
No one, and I mean no one, is climbing on a horse, picking up a bow and arrow, running around a castle, or doing any of those other things she does.
Yeah.
Without throwing their hair up into a ponytail first. Scummer at this point. At this point, if you tried to set the Passion of Christ in Scotland, it'd be more accurate to Scottish history than Braveheart. Because at least it'd be an allegory of something.
Yeah.
Let's not go down that road.
Yeah.
It borrows that, and that's the next point I want to talk about, because that's the next big relevant thing, isn't it? So nice segue.
Yeah.
But So it's kind of, and it's a given because it's an animation and it's children's and it's fictionalized and
Yeah.
But there is a reason that hair would be insane trying to use a bow and arrow.
Yeah.
Getting tangled up in it and all sorts. She must have a hell of a hair care routine. That's all I've got to say. Because wow.
Yeah.
But yeah, moving on to
moving on to what I'd call the first actual subversion. Or the first blatant subversion is we have we have the attack by Mordu. And then it attacks Fergus and the screen goes black and we think, okay, here's our Disney parent death.
Yeah.
And
then he survives.
Yeah, and it goes through the opening narration, letting the audience think, he's Fergus is dead. And then she comes into the dining room and there he is alive.
Yeah. So it is a very good way of doing that. Yeah. It is a very good way of, saying this is not your typical Disney movie. And it immediately situates them both in that really nice relationship they've got with the brothers. It situates the entire family sitting down to dinner, private family affair with the kids, telling stories. They've obviously heard this story every night since the year dot because the kids are bored out of their minds.
Yeah.
So and that's what I want to talk about next, because this film borrows a lot from Scottish mythology, if you like.
Yeah.
We call it mythology, folklore.
Yeah.
But also, and it is something the film actually the film almost winks at you when it points it out. That the characters are in their own legend.
Yeah.
The characters and are very aware of the optics of everything they do and how that might be carried through in a story. This is why the father keeps retelling the same Mordu story. This is why the mother is constantly pushing Meridia to be better, to do better, to be perfect. Yeah. Because she has to be. Because how she is now will be distorted and caricaturized in the legends. And they know they're in the making of their own legend.
Yeah.
And they're very self-aware in that sense as characters.
Legends are lessons.
Yeah. And again, this movie is winking at you so hard when it says that.
Yeah.
It's like, legends are lessons, so pay attention.
Yeah.
That's what's going on there. And these characters, obviously, Scotland has an amazing history, fantastic, sort of varied and beautiful folklore. And this does draw on some of the best.
Yeah.
The Will-o'-the-Wisp thing, which is the first thing I want to point out.
Yeah.
First of all, you've got this thing again of your father doesn't believe in magic, but your mother does.
Yeah.
And it's that duality of father believes in reality, in war, in arming his daughter, in training her to fight, because he knows she's going to have to fight, so he may as well let her enjoy the time she's got.
Yeah.
But then when push comes to shove and reality kicks in, that's when mum has to step in and say, no, listen, Meridia, you're a woman in this society, you need to get married.
Yeah.
But mum's also raised her with these stories of Will-o'-the-Wisp and this awareness of the culture she's in, which is why I'm not sure Eleanor's all that foreign.
Yeah.
She's clearly close enough. She knows the culture, and it's there's no books in this culture. It's all oral tradition. So she's not gonna be someone who has learned this by reading about it.
Yeah.
This is something she was raised into quite clearly. I will say the Will-o'-the-Wisp thing. I had to pause the movie and I went and I just googled Brave computer game. Because they literally do look like a computer game as you walk up to them and collect them, don't they?
Yeah,
like coins in a Mario game.
Yeah, they kind of do.
That's exactly what it looked like.
Yeah.
And, leading you towards your destiny like a computer game is very... It's a nice juxtaposition of the modern... And it does make you think of a computer game, and you're thinking, "Oh, this is an adventure now." And it draws you in that way.
Especially given the fact that it's computer animated.
Mm-hmm. I did look at it and think, yeah, they were planning on making a computer game of this.
Yeah.
Like, it's all there. The archery competitions, follow the Will-o'-the-Wisp, ride the horse.
Yeah.
All the elements of a great computer game are there.
Fight the
Very
bear.
Skyrim.
Yeah.
And then to feed into it, you've got this voiceover talking about fate and destiny. Classic Disney fare.
Yeah.
But lampooned a little bit and lampshaded.
Yeah.
No, it's not, Scummer. Little blue flames that look like the electric flame from the N-Power adverts from about 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And you get this juxtaposition. The mother's giving her a Renaissance education.
Yeah.
It's a very traditional Renaissance education. She's learning to sew. She's learning geography. She's learning, culture. She's learning politics, languages. She's been set up as a Catherine the Great figure.
Yeah.
That's what she's been set up as. She's getting the best education money can buy, but pointedly she's getting it from her mother. Her mother gives her the best education money can buy in this era. That's weird for royalty. That is weird for the mother to be training her in that.
Yeah.
Like, she should have had multiple governesses growing up. She should have had tutors and all this, and just, no. That's weird for royalty, the sort of assumed era we're in. But it says a lot about the mother that she wasn't willing to risk her daughter's education by trusting it to other people.
Yeah.
But it adds into that dichotomy of mum's the teacher, mum's the boring one, dad's the one who lets me play, and all that feeds into this relationship.
Yeah, and and dad's the one with my sense of humor.
Yeah, dad's the one who's got the same sense of humor as me. Dad's the one who lets me ride and do archery, and who thinks I'm clever when I climb rocks and do all these other things, and probably gave her the penknife she carries that she carved a bow with, and all these things.
Yeah.
That just... Dad's the fun one.
Yeah.
Dad doesn't make us sit down and learn the names of 6 clans and 12 clan leaders and all this other stuff, and doesn't insist that she knows everything about every culture in there. Her mother is setting her up to rule. That's what her mother's doing. She's not being given a woman's education. She's been given a queen's education. And there is a difference.
And while Eleanor is, like, while Eleanor is depicted, as the, as the, so, see, interestingly, okay, my brain just did something.
Go on. We can all see the cogs turning.
Yeah.
We're just waiting for them to click into place and the words to come out.
Brave is a passing the torch movie.
It's Eleanor, a coming of age movie.
Yeah, Eleanor is basically the image of what, of what a Disney princess, a Renaissance and before Disney princess was supposed to be, though, even though she's actually got the backbone to back it up. Everyone listens to Eleanor. And the whole movie is about her and Merida coming to terms, and her eventually and the inevitability that she will pass the torch on to Merida, who is the new Disney princess.
And they have to meet in the middle to find.
Yeah, who is the, new wave of Disney princess, a la Tangled, a la Frozen.
The princesses who aren't made to just look pretty and smile.
Yes.
Yeah. It's a good thought. I would say if there had been less of the meeting in the middle, that is the conclusion to this movie, and less of the stringent attachment to family above all else, which is pure Disney.
Yeah.
I would go with it, but I will point out that traditionally Disney princesses are trying to get away from their families.
Yeah.
Are trying to grow up and get out into the world. Whereas Merida, she's almost presented as having a level of immaturity because she doesn't want to do that.
Yeah.
And it's only as she grows and as she gets closer to her mum that she is allowed to not follow that path.
Yeah.
And it says a lot that in order to... She's basically pulled a... what's the one with Anne Hathaway? Princess story with Anne Hathaway.
I have no idea.
The live action one where she's the Princess of Genovia.
Oh, Princess Diaries.
She's basically pulled a Princess Diaries.
Yeah.
She's decided that because she doesn't like it, she's going to change the situation rather than grow into it. But especially against the backdrop of her father and the men being very, let's face it, immature.
Yeah.
That is not presented as a good thing that Merida doesn't want to walk that path.
Yeah.
And it's only when the mother is changed so much that it's even considered an option not to.
Yeah.
And I think there's definitely an argument for what you're saying about this is a handover movie from Disney to Pixar princesses.
Yeah. Especially as it came out, or as it was in in production around the time Pixar took over management.
Yeah. But I think there is still that snobbery inherent in this film that is embodied by the mother, that she must follow the prescribed Disney princess route.
Yeah.
And if she doesn't, there's something wrong with her, not with the route itself. And it's only at the end, even to the point where you almost half expect Meridia to, when she's bawling and crying, you almost half expect her to say, listen, I'll marry one of them if you change back. You almost half expect that. And you almost half expect that that's how it's going to go in the end anyway. You're never shown whether this actually held. Or whether this was just a blip. And there's no... You know, at the end of The Little Mermaid, we see King Triton use his trident to give Ariel legs and lets her go, and off she goes.
Yeah.
At the end of most Disney princess movies, there's a moment of the parents letting the daughter go. And letting her do her own thing. And her own thing is usually marry the prince, because it's a Disney princess movie. But in this one, we don't really get that. We don't get any real conclusion of her parents actually saying, no, actually, yeah, she said this in a speech when everyone was arguing and everything else. But are we actually going to stand by that? Because anything can be said in the heat of the moment.
Yeah.
And that undercuts it for me a little bit.
Yeah.
But also kind of goes with your theory that this is a handover movie and it's not meant to be the conclusion. It's a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
Which I can go with, and I can go with that.
Yeah.
Because this movie, I think, clues in the name, this movie is first and foremost about bravery and different kinds of bravery.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's bravery in being the perfect queen that Eleanor wants. There's bravery in fighting and battling and behaving the way the father does. There's bravery in being like Meridia and being rebellious. There's also bravery in not being like that. And this film does capture that really well.
And there is, you know, bravery in admitting that your pride has caused problems and rectifying it.
And I think what this movie does really well is that it lets the parents be wrong.
Yeah.
It lets the mother be. And there's this beautiful playoff that they have where Meridia's talking to the horse and the mother's talking to the father. And there's this beautiful thing of all they want each other to do is listen.
Yeah.
But neither of them are actually listening to the other one.
And I actually really love that scene, how it's literally just a shot reverse shot and it plays out really like they're talking to each other.
Yeah. And if you look at it, both the husband and the horse look at whoever they're talking to like they're full of shit, because they are.
Yeah.
Because they've grasped the main problem. The husband grasps it really early on. Yeah.
Yeah.
In that, the imitation he does of Meridia sticks a bit, because, like, you raised her to be that way, dude.
Yeah.
Why are you taking the mickey now? But the mother, he picks up on the mother very quickly is not listening to her daughter.
Yeah.
She's not listening. And just the horse huffing at Meridia just says everything.
Yeah.
There's no words needed for that.
Yeah.
And then like swatting her with its tail.
But first, but before we get to that, let's talk about the other subversion, which is the contest of the suitors.
Yeah, the contest of the suitors is a classic trope.
Yeah.
It's Robin Hood. This is the Robin Hood story.
Yeah.
And Meridia is supposed to be Maid Marian.
Yeah.
She's supposed to sit there, look pretty, and give a kiss to the winner. That's how that's supposed to go down.
Yeah.
But she's very clever. As soon as she hears her mum say, the eldest born of any clan may put forward a claim.
Of the 4 great clans.
Yeah, the 4 great clans. And of course, she is the eldest born of the 4th great clan. That's what they're there for. So she does technically. And the one thing I do like about Meridia is that she is technically minded. She is intelligent.
Yeah.
To have even come up with something like that quickly, she's intelligent. Which is why the way she is with the witch makes no sense. Makes zero sense for the plot. Like, the same girl who heard her mum say the eldest born child of the 4 great clans may put in a claim is not... Yeah. And when, oh, I can win my own hand, like that, is not the same girl who goes to a witch and doesn't listen and doesn't pay attention to the wording of what's being told.
Yeah.
Because even watching it, obviously I'm an adult, but watching it, you sort of go, hang on. Maybe I've seen too many Disney movies and I know that you never, ever trust the witch.
Yeah.
And that there's always a catch. But that felt really, really clumsy to me.
It seems to me that the wood carver...
yeah, the whittler.
Yeah. only really knows one spell.
Yeah, but only really knows one spell, but also the clue is there in the whittler versus witch thing. This woman is clever with words. Meridia, the same girl who fought for her own hand, should have picked up on that and should have been more specific and asked for more specificity. I've literally put it on my notes here. Where is it? I put specificity of the spell, danger, danger, warning, in all caps on my phone. Seriously.
Yeah. And, though... That being said, now first question: was this a rewatch or a first time watching for you?
I think it was a rewatch, but so long ago I don't remember it.
Okay. So for the purposes of our discussion, it might as well have been a first time.
Yeah.
So. Did you twig what was going to happen the second you saw the wood carving shop was full of bears?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much, I looked at it, I went, it's full of bears. She's given a potion to make a change, but hasn't specified what change. And the last guy she gave a potion to had the strength of 10 men, which is oddly specific, and also about the same sort of strength a bear has.
Yeah.
This woman makes bears. That's what this woman does.
Also, there's a demon bear impervious to weapons running around.
Yeah. That's got to have some magic involved somehow, somewhere.
Yeah.
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 Scummer, this is media musings, not porn thoughts. Yeah, I know it's a typo, but I had to make that comment because that's brilliant.
Yeah.
But yeah, so and then we've got the witches in place. It's all there. And we have the turning point moment. And again, the witch gives them this opportunity, this one last chance to come together before. Yeah. And the first thing the mother says is, I've smoothed it over. And Meridia thinks, okay, my mum's on my side. Let's...
Yeah.
And then, now you have to do as you're told. And that's what winds Meridia up and makes her go ahead with the plan.
Well, now I don't think this was... Well, one, I don't think this was the witch's doing, because it's pretty obvious she only knows one spell.
No, but what the witch does, and it is very obvious what the witch does, what she did with the prince in the legend, what she does with Meridia and her mum, she gives them one last chance to make amends before it kicks in. That's why you've got that second sunrise thing. It's also why you kind of she sent them back. Because you do get the impression, and you're supposed to, I think, get the impression that if the mother would have said, okay, I've smoothed it over, and if you're really not ready, I'll send them away and we'll come back to it in a few more years, Meridia wouldn't have gone ahead with the plan of giving her mother the cake.
Yeah, she would have tossed the... Like, you can see that she was getting ready to... Like, just toss the potion.
And it's that moment of the immovable object and the unstoppable force.
Yeah, but I don't think that was the witch's doing, because when Eleanor threw the bow in the fire, she realized what she did.
Okay, hands up. There's an extra on Disney Plus of the Mordu legend.
Oh.
It's 5 minutes long, and the witch specifies that she sent him back and gave him the opportunity to make peace before the spell became permanent. So it is deliberate.
Though you do get a hint of that in the flashback sequence when in the ruined castle. Yeah,
you do. And that's the entire point. The thing is, in the Mordu story, the reason the prince, what happened there is the prince called his brothers back, claiming that he wanted a truce. Then when they got there, he took the spell and killed them.
Yeah.
That was his opportunity to make amends. This moment in the kitchen with Meridia and her mum is the opportunity to make amends. And it is, the mother's worried sick, she's terrified her daughter's gone missing, but she still can't understand why. She's not self-aware enough to grasp that this is on her.
Yeah.
And it's with both of them. It's that moment of, are you actually capable of the reflection required?
Yeah.
And then that blowout, especially after that blowout argument. And it is really symbolic, burning the bow. And the comment she passes to the husband, this is all your fault, it comes from your side of the family.
Yeah.
That's classic. Anyone who's ever watched any movie about parents going through a divorce, you get that. The demonizing of it, the blaming the child for things beyond their control, for aspects of their personality that have been forged by exposure to the parents. And to be honest, and I will say this, I have observed, and it is an observation, I don't have kids, I have observed that parents who dislike their kids the most are the parents whose kids are most like them.
Yeah.
And that's what's going on there. Like, she sees in Meridia, she sees herself in Meridia, she sees that stubbornness. She talks about, the stubbornness comes from your side of the family. But the father's not stubborn. He's not stubborn at all. He does as he's told when his wife tells him. He's a great peacemaker. He's a talker. He's a classic charismatic leader. He's not stubborn in the slightest.
Yeah.
You know, But she is. And that's the point, is these two are so wrapped up in their own thoughts, they haven't realised that they're looking at each other and they're basically looking in a mirror.
Yeah.
And that's where, especially in movies, 90% of parent-child conflict comes from.
Yeah.
Do as I say, not as I do. With parents. Folks, it doesn't work in real life. Please don't do that to your kids. But there is this real, that's what's going on with Meridia and her mum. They are two sides of the same coin. They are, and the problem is, the mum has educated Meridia so well. It's this classic thing of, you spend the first 10, 15 years of their life teaching them to walk, talk and think. And then the next few years wishing they'd sit down, shut up and do as they're told.
Yeah.
And it is that, Meridia is hitting that age where she's thinking for herself and she wants to make her own decisions. But she's still, a mother hasn't realised that her daughter's grown up. That's the problem.
Yeah.
It's the failure to acknowledge the fact that Meridia is her own person and not just a carbon copy of her mum. Kids are not your fashion accessories, people. Basically.
Yeah, she basically, the problem is Eleanor sees Meridia as old enough to be married off, but not old enough to think for herself.
Exactly. And the thing is, that's dangerous. Because in Eleanor, you've got a woman who clearly can think for herself, was old enough to be married off and everything else, had her doubts but went with it.
Yeah.
And had the education to stand on her own 2 feet within the marriage. And carry the marriage, frankly.
And is clearly the power of the throne.
Yeah, she's the brains behind the throne. Quite clearly.
She is the she is the political power in this society. She's because even like the other chieftains see Fergus as an equal, but they defer to Eleanor.
Exactly, she is the power, and she hasn't realised that Meridia is perfectly capable of picking up that mantle.
Yeah.
But that Meridia doesn't want to pick up that mantle. I don't blame her. Imagine being a teenager and having that as your future. I don't blame her in the slightest. I want to spend a few more years riding horses and shooting bows and having fun too first.
Especially given the choices presented.
Yeah. Look, how many years did it take Aragorn to sort himself out and to grow up before he was ready to take the throne?
Yeah.
Look at how long you're expecting Meridia to do it in. There are other Lord of the Rings things, but Aragorn was hundreds of years old by the time he took the throne.
Yeah, like a good 100 or so, which is pretty. Hold on.
Please hold. So he's 87. Yeah. He's got all that life experience, all that time where he's really, really had the opportunity and lived his life. He's had his wild years. Meridia's barely seen anything of life.
Yeah.
And she's expected to essentially step into the same role he has. And it's what's been put on her at such a young age. No wonder she's crying that she's not ready and she doesn't want to do it. I wouldn't want to do it either. And I'm pushing 30 and I wouldn't want to... No.
So, that being said... I do love the gag about what's the third clan's name? It's like Dougal or something like that.
Dingwall.
Dingwall. Yeah, because you've got Don Brock, which are the
No, you've got the Macintoshes, the MacGuffins, the Dingwalls, and the Dongrocks.
Yeah.
Are the 4 major clans. I wrote
Yeah.
them down because I knew I'd forget the names.
But yeah, of course you've got Macintosh and MacGuffin, which are, just there to be, and the Dingwalls. But I love the gag that is the revelation of the suitor from Dingwall.
Yeah, so you see this big, and then he comes out and he's his little slip of a lad, and his hair's up, and he looks like the personification of a Will-o'-the-Wisp with the hair all over the place, like Jedward. He's got a Jedward thing going on. Like, what's that about?
And then of course he's kind of nutso.
He's a bit of a stoner. That's the impression I got of him. He's a bit of a stoner character.
Nah, he's got a bit of I'd probably say more crack addict. He's got the crack crazies.
Yeah, he's got the crack crazies. And then you've got the other one who's the classic poser.
Yeah.
And given that their symbolism is the Scottish symbolism, we presume they are Picts.
Yeah.
And then you've got the other ones who are...
and then you've got MacGuffin, who talks in an incomprehensible Scottish accent.
Okay. I need to say something here. The subtitles for Disney Plus literally put incomprehensible Scottish.
Yeah.
I understood most of what that character was saying. Like, I could get the gist of what that character was saying. So it's not incomprehensible, you're just American. Disclaimer, I do work in a call centre. I'm used to dealing with really thick Scottish accents.
Asterisk. Mileage may vary depending on your distance from Hadrian's Wall.
Yeah. But I did actually... You can hear some of what he's saying if you listen carefully. Is that what we... Also, for the record, is that what we sound like to Americans? Is that what Americans think foreigners sound like? Oh, Rab Nesbitt. I think that's what it was based off, to be honest, Scummer. But yeah. We kind of, because we're all over the shop, I want to talk about the symbolism of particular objects in this movie.
Okay.
I don't want to talk about the tapestry much. I want to talk about other things.
Okay.
The bow, first of all. We see this bow, she's grown up with a bow in her hand. It's hers. And the mother's immediate regret on throwing it onto the fire.
Yeah.
That's a moment that destroys relationships, and rightly so. Yeah. She's basically taken the one thing her daughter loves, and she's hit her where it hurts. And you do almost look at it and think, you're supposed to be the adult in this situation. What were you doing?
To make a comparison to another Disney princess movie, it's basically Triton destroys Ariel's collection room in like 5 seconds.
Yeah. It is that. It is very much, you are destroying the one thing your daughter loves above everything else. You are destroying that which makes her unique and that which makes her who she is. And therefore, by extension, you are disowning her because you are disowning such an important part of who she is.
And I will say it. Pixar put all the weight from that scene in The Little Mermaid in just like 5 seconds.
Yeah, they did it. Especially with the tapestry, the shot as well. And don't come at me with this tit for tat. Meridia destroyed the tapestry first or whatever.
Yeah.
Meridia is the child in that situation. The literal job of a parent in that situation is to be the bigger person. Not might is right, not I'm right, you're wrong, and there's nothing you can do about it. This is not Matilda.
Yeah.
Be a parent, and being a parent means listening to your child, not destroying something really important to them. You do that. Do you know what happens to people who do things like that in real life? Their kids leave home at 18 and they never hear from them again. That's what happens to people who do things like that in real life.
Yeah.
You wonder why why kids don't stay in touch with their parents when the parents are like that. That's why. But then we have this moment of that I think is really important, where I think it's prior to this, where she's being dressed up and she's been put in the dress.
Yeah.
And everything about her is gone.
Yeah.
Her hair's hidden away. She can't carry a bow. She can't use a bow properly in it because it's so restrictive. She can't breathe properly. It's making her feel weak. And Meridia is a lot of things, but she's not weak.
Yeah.
And it's basically her mother forcing her into this mold. And it's a heavy-handed, but also reasonably well done for a kids' movie.
Yeah.
Metaphor. It's not subtle what that dress represents.
Yeah, and once again, I'm gonna Pixar did it better again. Only this time, not a canon princess, but she is a governor's daughter after all. I'd say Pixar did the better, all like slightly edges out Disney on the restrictive female fashion joke.
I think for the use Disney is putting it to, for the use it's been put to in Brave,
yeah,
Brave did it better.
Yeah.
If you put the two side by side of rebellious young girl forced into a corset, Pirates did it better. It's just funnier, it's just better played, it's just, yeah.
Yeah. Pirates is more entertaining. Brave carries more thematic weight.
Yeah, it is more thematically appropriate in Brave.
Yeah.
And we get this moment where Meridia, the archery competition I want to talk about. If anyone's ever seen Disney's Robin Hood, it's designed to look like that. I wouldn't be surprised if they recycled some of the designs from that.
Yeah.
With the way the throne is set up, with the archery contest.
Yeah.
It is, she comes in and she beats them all stone cold calm.
Yeah.
And she even does the classic Robin Hood of splitting the wand. Splitting the arrow.
First, she does the classic Robin Hood of showing up in disguise, but then, of course, she reveals herself. Yeah. And then she goes, 1 bullseye, 2 bullseye, and then she splits the arrow.
And then you get the slow release of the last one.
Yeah.
It's that is harking back to centuries of Robin Hood storytelling.
Yeah.
She is Robin Hood in that moment, and she's better than Robin Hood because she didn't stop moving. If you look at it, the first shot, the second shot, she let off. She didn't even stop moving. She just straight in, and then she pulls it back, and she pulls it so fast she sends the arrow through the target.
Yeah,
and utterly splits the arrow, and she utterly humiliates everyone there. But because she's a woman, that is not acceptable. And that could start a war. And it is the flip side of that. They are playing with, when a man does it, he's a hero and he's amazing and he gets the prize. When a woman does it, it's horrendous and it's terrible and it's an interesting parallel they're drawing. And it's got to be deliberate.
Which is really ironic because after this, they're all looking to Eleanor to solve it.
Yeah. They are looking to Eleanor to solve it, and you do get the impression it's a case of, she's your daughter, why aren't you dealing with this kind of thing.
Also, Well, also you get the sense that Eleanor settles a lot of the disputes that can't be settled in just a quick bash up.
Yeah. But I also think as well with Eleanor, there is this sense, and I don't know if it's something that people who are socialised AMAB get as much of, but growing up when you're AFAB, you are very much viewed as a reflection of your mother. Anything you do reflects on me. What you do, I'm responsible for, is what your mother tells you from a young age, or at least my mother did. And so you either have to rebel and shame your mother, or you have to go with it. But anything you do that is not a carbon copy of anything of being your mother is going to be viewed as shameful, because it's a failing on your mother's part for not raising you right.
Yeah.
And that, I think, there is an undercurrent of that with Eleanor. And it is very... Again, that's why it's so telling that there's no women in this film. You get the impression if there were other women in this film, there would be the snide comments being passed of, oh, look at her, where's her mother?
Yeah.
And Eleanor is so aware of that. And I think Eleanor is probably too aware of that. In this culture where the other women aren't present.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's an interesting thing of, does Eleanor actually believe this stuff, or is she just doing what's expected?
Yeah.
Because you kind of see when Meridia's younger, Eleanor's clearly allowed this to go on for, a long time.
Yeah. Well, so
and she was truly against it.
So, here's an idea, or here's what might have happened. Because the three princes are obviously very, very young. They're about as old as as Merida was in the before title scene. So I'm wondering if Merida was raised as if she was the heir until the princes came along.
Quite possibly there's an element of that going on as well.
Yeah.
Because there is one thing I noticed, and I was just like, no wonder she has no respect for you. Eleanor talks constantly is on at her husband and at Meridia about weapons at the dinner table.
Yeah.
For the record, folks, she's right. But notice how she doesn't stop taking letters at the dinner table.
Yeah.
So she's not practicing what she preaches. She's not wholly there in the moment. If your attitude is that the job of a queen is to communicate and to be that calming presence, then you're essentially, by having letters and pen and paper at the dinner table, you've brought your weapons to the table. And is it any wonder your husband and your children look at you and think, what are you on? When you tell them, put your bow away, put your sword away. because you're not self-aware enough to see that they are following your example.
Yeah,
and you can't say,
they're
do as I say,
you know
not as I do.
they're taking the tools of their trade to the table, though you see it as them imposing barbarism in a civil setting.
Yeah. But just because your weapon is pen and paper doesn't mean it's any less dangerous than the weapons they're bringing to the table.
Yeah.
You also do get the impression that the mother just wanted a girly girl daughter and is a bit annoyed that she didn't get one.
Yeah.
Again, kids aren't your friggin' playthings.
Also, after the another. Oh yeah.
This is what I mean. This is what I'm getting at, Scummy. She's right. From an etiquette point of view, she's right. No weapons at the table. But what I'm getting at is she's bringing her weapons to the table, and just because her weapons are pen and paper doesn't mean she shouldn't be leaving them at the door as well.
Yeah.
If dinner time is family time, then her letters should not be being delivered to her at the table. And that's what Pixar's showing us in that.
Yeah, and they are showing dinner as a private affair.
Yeah. That's what they're showing us, that she's saying, do as I say, not as I do.
And also, for all of, Eleanor's cultural knowledge, she lacks local survival knowledge.
Oh yeah, no, and this is the problem. Meridia's been raised, she's a survivor.
Yeah.
And Meridia, she wanted her mum to change. And it says a lot that in order to connect with the woman, you've got to turn her into a bear.
Yeah.
For her to see it, and it's got an almost Studio Ghibli vibe of nature is the answer, nature is right. When you're at one with nature, you're at one with the world and with the earth and everything else.
Yeah, which is a refreshing change from the other Disney transformation.
Yeah, it's nice to
Yeah.
It's nice to see. It is also really, I think it's so important that when Meridia stands up to defend her mum, that she does it using a sword. That she does it and she fights. And she stands up against her own father and says no.
Yeah, hold on. Because I want to talk about the fishing scene, because
that's beautiful. It also gives me Brother Bear vibes.
Well, yeah, it's a beautiful scene, and it also ends kind of tragically.
Yeah, it does. But also, it's a beautiful scene. It gave me also, if you've seen, and I can't believe I'm quoting this movie, don't kill me in the comments, please. If you've ever seen any rendition of the story of Robin Hood and Little John meeting.
Yeah.
They tend to meet at a river. Robin Hood has to cross, and he has to fight Little John with a staff to do it, and basically gets his ass handed to him.
Yeah.
That's how Robin Hood and Little John meet in the folklore. Little John basically hands Robin Hood's ass to him. And actually the merry men are already there, and they are John's men. And it's only when Robin comes along, because he's a lord and because he's, he's Locksley and he's all this, that and the other, and he's more intelligent. And it's only because John defers to him that they become Robin Hood's merry men. Because before then, they were the woodsmen. They were Little John's woodsmen.
Yeah.
And this does have vibes of that, being, learning and growth and character development through learning to get a grip with nature. And the whole thing with Little John is he respects the fact that Robin can take the beating, respect him for it, and ask for lessons in the staff. That's the whole thing with Little John. That's why Little John likes him. And that's the same as what's happening here. You see that the mother has to swallow her pride, otherwise she's going to die, basically. And again, it's really telling that you've basically got to put her life on the line for her to start listening to her daughter.
Yeah.
Which kind of makes me feel like she's not the greatest mother in the world. She means well, she does all the right things. But again, you can do all the right things. You can give your kids everything. Like she says, she wanted her daughter. And this is a line I hear, and I grew up hearing this line. It made me so angry to see it in a Disney movie.
Yeah.
The line where she says, "We wanted to give you everything we never had."
Yeah.
Folks, and I say this advisedly, again, I'm not a parent. If you ever hear someone saying that to a child, pull them up on it. Because that's your job as a parent. That is the bare fucking minimum you should be doing. And you should not be putting it on the child that it's their fault, that that's your responsibility. You're the one who pissed her out. You deal with it. You give her everything you didn't have. That's your job as a mother. End of discussion. You should not be blaming her for that. Nor should you expect her to be grateful for that. Kids are not supposed to be grateful. They're supposed to eat you out of house and home, run off and break your heart, and make their own mistakes. That's what being a parent is about. Setting them up in the hope that they'll do better than you did. And it is not the child's job to be grateful to you for doing the bare fucking minimum. That line really just wound me right up when it came out of Eleanor's mouth.
Yeah.
Because it's a line that I am sure a lot of people who are ethnic minorities hear from their parents.
Yeah.
We want to give you everything we never had. But these parents haven't grasped the beautiful dresses and the toys and the beautiful horse and the castle and the money. None of that matters. All your child wants is for you to listen to them and to view them as a human being, and to respect the fact that they have their own agency as a human being. That's all. That's all she was asking for throughout this whole film. It's all she wanted from her mum. And the fact that it took life on the line, turning into a bear and everything else, that to me, yes, she means well. She's doing her best. That to me is not a good mother. It should not have taken that much.
She was a queen first and a mother second.
Exactly. And when you're a mother, you cannot be a mother second. That really wound me up, did that line from Eleanor. And it's almost a throwaway line in the film, because you know what? When parents say that to their kids, to them it is a throwaway line. But I promise you, and I'm sure people can tell, that I am close to, well, I'm not triggered, but I'm very wound up and angry about it.
Yeah.
That, you saying that to your kids, turns out kids like me reacting like I am right now to that line.
Yeah.
It turns out kids who honestly look back on you and see that, yes, you broke your back to put them through school and give them everything, and all they wanted was for you to sit down, hug them, and listen to them.
Yeah. And so now we'll go on to Merida's greatest shot in the movie.
Go on.
Because you were starting to talk to it first before I went to how the fishing scene is a beautiful bonding scene, and then turns slightly tragic as you begin to learn that Eleanor's brain is begin to slip.
Yeah, it's the spell because it's very werewolfy.
Yeah,
it's definitely feeding into werewolf vibes.
But
yeah, I was talking about Meridia in the archery scene.
No, here I thought you were talking about at the end where she shoots her father's sword out of his hand.
Yeah, there are two great all-out badass moments for Meridia for me.
Yeah.
There is the archery moment where she physically breaks out of the dress.
Yeah.
And takes the shot and humiliates everyone. That one's important. But also for me, the moment, the fight with her dad, and it escalates, and we see it escalate very quickly. Because her dad, for the first time in her life, is doing the one thing he never did before. He's not listening.
Yeah.
He's doing what her mum does, and she's realised, but she's so used to her dad being a good dad who listens to her and everything else, that she reacts really violently to that.
Well, I mean,
obviously with her mother's life on the line, that ups the stakes as well. But she does. Yeah. This is her moment. This is the moment, I think, as any parent, when you look at your child, you've got to be proud. You've got to be proud of the fact that this child is willing to stand up against you, and not just you, but everyone who's behind you, and tell you that you're full of shit. That's the moment you know your kid's old enough to look after themselves.
Yeah.
But she does it in such a way. She takes his own weapon against. She takes his own weapon against him, as in a sword. She pulls a sword, and then when he goes again, she uses, and it's so important. She uses the weapon he put in her hand. She uses the tools he gave her against him to protect her mother. It's the symbolism in that moment of you very much get the impression she's willing to kill to protect her mum. And she is in the worst situation a child can be put in. And I'm sure anyone who had parents who divorced when they were kids knows this one. She's basically has to make a choice, and she looks and she sees her father with all these people. He's all right, but her mother's on her own, and she picks the side of the one who's on their own.
Yeah.
Who can't speak for themselves, who's down, who's trapped, and she fights back. But her father stops, and her father recognises that moment, and it's so important that he does that. He doesn't do what Eleanor's been doing through this entire film, where when Meridia shows her who she is, Eleanor dismisses it and says, no, this is who you are because I said so. He stops and he looks at his daughter and he says, hang on. Why, he questions it. He questions his assumptions about Meridia.
And then, of course, the walking comedic relief show up and demonstrate that, this type of change is actually possible.
Yeah. And that's a good take, because the father in a few moments has got to do what it takes the mother an entire film to do.
Yeah.
He grasps that his daughter is grown up. He grasps that his daughter has got a handle on a situation. He grasps that something he fundamentally doesn't believe in, magic, is at play here. And he accepts it. And he does all of that purely because he knows who his daughter is. He knows his daughter. Yeah. He hasn't just been there and watched her grow up. He knows who she is. And he knows that his daughter would never raise a weapon against him because his daughter loves him and he loves his daughter, and that pulls him up short. The first time he's blinded by rage, but the second time he only needs a second time.
Yeah.
Whereas Eleanor needs 3, 4, 5 attempts at that moment to get it right.
And then of course we have Mordu show up again.
Yeah. Deus Ex Bear.
Not exactly, because you did see that shot, of him kind of in the corner when.
But the timing.
Yeah.
Deus Ex Bear. And again, the father's not taking what Meridia says purely on blind faith.
Yeah.
He respects her enough as a human being to listen to her, but then he sees this bear fighting back against Mordu. He sees these other things, he sees the wisps, he sees the other things, and he draws the logical conclusion, which is all most kids are asking their parents to do. You see, just look at the world how I see it for a moment, and I'm sure you'll come to the same conclusion. And so we have this knockout, drag-out fight, which is absolutely fantastic, by the way. I love using the landscape as a weapon. That's just brilliant.
Yeah.
And the classic moment of when the bear dies and we see the little spirit forming, becoming a wisp of it.
Well, where you see the ghost of the prince rise from the body, and he kind of looks thankful to me.
The nod, it's grateful.
Yeah. And then it becomes a wisp.
Yeah. And you get the impression it is very much he's trapped inside that prison of his own making.
Yeah.
And now he's free to, hop about the Scottish countryside, leading people down paths into their destinies.
Yeah.
Because his whole thing is he's accepted that there are certain aspects of your fate that you really don't know better. But it took all of that for him to do that, and he's grateful to her, but also I think that nod is a little bit of a mark of respect of, you learned the lesson I didn't.
Yeah, because, while Mordu, while I wouldn't say Mordu is the villain of the piece,
he's the antagonist.
And also he's the foil of, this is what happens if you don't reconcile.
Yeah. He's also, I think for me, the quote-unquote villain of this piece is the witch.
Really?
Closely followed by Eleanor.
Yeah, no, here I was gonna say the quote-unquote villain is the borderline toxic family dynamic we have.
Yeah, but the problem is, and this is the thing with that dynamic, is it looks perfect from the outside. We see these clips of her growing up, the kids running around, dinner table. It looks perfect, but it's not. Under the surface, it's niggling and it's rotten.
Yeah.
And there's a great message in there of don't trust what you think you can see in a family dynamic, because it's not always the case. It's really well done in that sense. I would not be... I don't want to. I know I spent a lot of time going on about the terrible things Eleanor does and everything else.
Yeah.
But she's not the villain. She's the antagonist.
Yeah.
Because.
Which
And
is
the thing
why
is, she's the hero of
which
her
is
own
why I
story.
phrased it as the villain is the dynamic.
Yeah. The villain is her inability to break out of traditional mentalities.
Yeah.
But she gets there eventually.
And of course, for all of the praise being thrown at Frozen for having the true love being familial, Pixar did it first.
Yeah, definitely. Pixar did it first. And better. I would say this is a better example. Depending on how they go, if they ever make a sequel. If they've made one, don't tell me about it. I don't want to know.
Yeah, no, they haven't. And I don't think one's in the works.
Yeah. This is why I don't like the ending as well. Because it's so open. Because what you see is not only does the mother have to move, Meridia has to move.
Yeah.
And I mean that as in emotionally and psychologically.
Yeah.
Meridia has to accept. She has to soar. She has to do something that she quite clearly hates and is not very good at.
Yeah.
She has to live through being locked in by her father, which is the one thing he's never done to her. Yeah. She has to basically get a taste of what it's like to be a classical Disney princess.
Yeah.
And then she has to accept it. Which irritates me. Because she does have to accept it. She has to soar. She has to... There was no apology required from Meridia in that scene. Yes, she acted like a child, but guess what? She was a child.
Yeah.
And this is what I mean by what I said right at the start. If this is the handover movie, it undercuts itself in the ending.
Yeah.
Which is why you can almost see Pixar wrote the entire thing, but Disney came in at the end like, holy shit, we can't tell daughters that it's okay to rebel against their mothers.
Yeah.
Like, in tradition, and we can't do that. So yeah, that's why this movie, it's a beautiful movie to watch. It's an alright story.
Yeah.
Some beautiful scenes in it. Some great badass moments from Meridia. But it undercuts itself, and that's why I think this movie has not achieved the classic cult status we expect from Pixar movies.
Yeah. Though, as with I've probably said it before on this channel, but if I haven't, I'll say it now, and I'll probably be saying it again. Pixar is largely on its own scale.
Yeah. No, Pixar is on its own scale, but that's why this movie, for me, because of the ending...
Yeah.
And I don't mean the hokey, jokey, that's what Naked as the Day You Were Born looks like, jokey ending. I mean the ending with Meridia.
The emotional climax.
Yeah, the emotional climax. For me, undoes all the good work of the previous hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah.
It just does. It undercuts itself. And that's why this movie's not a classic. And that's why this movie... Look, for a Pixar movie, it's bad. But it says a lot when you look at it and you think it's so internally inconsistent. And the plot holes are so bad that for a Disney movie, it's bad.
Now,
On a plot basis.
Yeah.
I'm saying this. Yeah.
So, arguably, I argue now. My reading is, sewing the tapestry wasn't wasn't actually necessary.
No,
It
it
was a
wasn't strictly necessary.
Yeah, it was a
But
misinterpretation of the witch's words.
it was, but the fact that that interpretation held enough water for Meridia to go for it and to try it says a lot.
Yeah.
And the fact that the implications of that basically what this movie is saying is Meridia is not. Meridia recognizes that she cannot exist in this world as she is. And she's somehow accepted that, and we're supposed to be okay with that. You know, it's not Fiona from Shrek. It's not, this is who I am, deal with it. It's, oh, maybe Mum was right and I should do as I'm told. That the implication that carries. And I don't like it. Hiya, Chaos.
Hi, guys. Sorry I'm late to technical issues.
Yeah, that's all right.
Valid.
So it's kind of odd that I'd probably brave a bit higher than you do, considering how you were the one who suggested brave.
It is, but when you look at us and you look at our lived experiences, it's not.
Yeah.
Because as I've pointed out and you've seen from at least the 2 hissy fits I've had,
Yeah.
this touches a lot of sore spots for anyone who is a former tomboy. And it speaks to a disconnect between mother and child.
Yeah.
That a clue, folks, I'm still in therapy for. So, you know, it is what it is. I think maybe I remember this film a little bit more kindly than I should have done when I suggested it.
Well, I mean, that's always a risk you take when you suggest a film out of memory.
Yeah. The thing is, as well, with this, Meridia's mum did move. And Meridia's mum did come to meet her in the middle. Even if only temporarily. It's only as an adult watching this I think, okay, but is that move permanent?
Yeah. I think that just from what I've heard in the last little bit, I agree with you, Noodle, but I think rather than it being the ending per se, it's the implications of what probably happened after the ending.
Yeah.
Like if there was a Brave 2 and Merida was still fuck off bastard whenever people tried to tell her what to do, then
and wasn't married, or maybe had a love affair with a local boy.
Yeah, something abnormal about it.
Yeah,
I think that would save it.
Not even abnormal, just Meridia and not forced.
Yeah, or even I mean, there's a billion ways they could save it, but they would just have to not negate all of her character growth.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, the ideal follow-up for this movie for me is a 5 or 10 year time skip, and you've got all the clans meeting up again, maybe for like an annual check-in type thing, summit if you like.
Yeah.
You've got all the clan leaders there with their sons, and Meridia's there with her dad. And what you've got is, while that summit's going on, Meridia's knocking about with the 3 others from the clans and getting to know them beyond their father's chat. And getting to see them beyond the superficial you've got an impenetrable accent, you're a poser, and what the fuck are you on? That we get from this movie.
So I know no one ever watches Media Musings, but if there are any Pixar if there are any Pixar executives watching this, here's a free elevator pitch.
Yeah, basically.
Pretty much.
No, I'll take it farther.
I'm not finished.
No, well, okay. Here's mine. The clan chiefs get nabbed in a Viking raid. The Vikings raid the gathering, and the dads get nabbed, and then the conflict of the movie is the sons and Merida have to go rescue them.
Yeah.
And because Pixar is at its best when it's doing growth along the road movies.
Yeah. So you can take it that way, or you can take it the way I was going, which was get the four of them knocking around together, and there's internal inconsistencies in the others' lives. Maybe something where these lads are really being pressured, even though, and they sit down and have the conversation, maybe around a campfire of, yeah, they said that in the hall, but you know what it was like when we got home. It was just the pressure was back on, and they have that conversation, and maybe one of these lads is being pressured to marry a girl from another clan or something, and you can sort of see the whole. If you wanted to take it the romance route and join one of these clans, you could sort of take it the whole, okay, so I'll pretend to be dating you so they'll leave you alone route. You could take it the fan fiction.
I can definitely see that being a thing. I see while you're describing this noodle, I'm just sort of picturing the campfire scene from Avatar: The Last Airbender with Zuko.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I sort of see, as they're pretending to be dating for the, so he can have his own life, either they fall in love along the way, or she helps him hide a girlfriend who he actually is desperately in love with, and helps him bring that to his father's attention without being disowned, and get the marriage he wants. And that's the basis on which they build future alliances. She helped him marry there, he respects her as a leader, and then the others respect her as a leader for that same reason. And you have basically a playback of the scene where Meridia tells all the fathers, look at what you've got in common, look at all the things you did. You have that scene again, but it's her and the other boys of Meridia. If it wasn't for Meridia, I'd have never married the love of my life. And you did this for me. You helped me sneak out of the castle to meet such and such. And maybe the other ones, if they wanted to get really progressive and modern and piss off the conservatives, you could make one of them gay.
Yeah.
Pair up the other two together.
To me, that either one of the.
Say that again, Chaos?
Yeah, you got a bit skippy.
Sorry, I think I cut. Sorry. I was just saying, I feel like either making Merida a lesbian, one of the lads gay, or making one or more of them ace would fit really well.
I feel like I would find it a bit insulting if Merida was made a lesbian.
Yeah.
I think...
Fair. I think it wouldn't be this. I think the smart move with Merida would be to make her aromantic, asexual, or both.
Yeah, she's definitely an ace icon. She is, just as is.
Yeah, like, as an aero ace person, I'm just immediately claiming that she's aero ace out of the gate in terms of headcanon.
Yeah, that'll do. Yeah. And there's plenty of textual evidence for that, and I'd go with that as well. So if you didn't, and then maybe she learns by helping them all out how to run and how to keep them all in line, which is what she's going to need when she finally takes over from her father.
Yeah.
There's a lot of ways you could do it. I do like your idea of them having to work together. I think the core of it has to be, though, that she gets to show off her diplomatic skills as well as her other skills. Also, I just really want to see how those three lads grow up, because they're basically going to be the three musketeers of planking. They are going to be brilliant tricksters.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
I feel like if Brave 2 was just them messing up and Merida having to fix it.
Merida having to fix her brother's problems, that could also be a great story.
Yeah.
Now, to go back to the dating thing a second, I say this jokingly, but a plot where Merida has to try and persuade all the other clans to be fine with not only queer people but polyamory, and the three clan princes are in a throuple.
Well, that's one way of unifying Scotland. I mean, given that the posers' iconography is the Scottish flag, bloody hell. Given that the posers' iconography is a Scottish flag, you've got to assume that somewhere in a sequel he grew up and they're unified.
Yeah.
Because that's historically what happens. Think that could be a good plot. I'm not keen on any plot in which Merida loses her identity to marriage or anything marriage adjacent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there is scope for something to really pull that ending out of the quagmire it dropped itself into.
Yeah.
I feel like the reason that Brave doesn't have follow-up things isn't because it wasn't a good film, but because they're in a weird dichotomy of Disney not being willing to allow Merida to have that growth, but knowing that if they made a second film, Merida wouldn't get the growth and so they can't make it.
Yeah.
Also in the weird quagmire where Brave is both a Pixar movie and also Disney Princess canon.
Yeah.
Yeah. The thing is, with being Disney Princess, that Meridia has a set expectation that she's going to marry and settle down, yada, yada, yada. And that's not Meridia.
Yeah.
That's why, as much as I'd say I'd love a sequel to see where she really makes an impact on it that is neither historically accurate nor likely to be something Disney green flags.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Final thoughts?
Pretty movie, good movie, great heroine.
Yeah.
Don't treat your kids like shit, it'll come back to bite you. They might not turn you into a bear, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, similar thoughts with the addition of the writers actually paid attention to folklore and like relevant local things.
Yeah.
So like I actually think it's an excellent film. I just think that the end drags it down from being as good as it should have been.
Yeah.
And I know there was a nod to it earlier, but I'm gonna say Pixar did Brother Bear better than Disney.
Pretty much.
And
so basically, like the movie, these roundup comments are a bit of a mixed bag.
Yeah. Shilling.
Nothing to shill. I will be here.
Yep.
Yes. I know I said that I was going to put a video up in the last week. I was gonna. Things came up. As they always do. So my goal at this point is I'm going to aim for this coming week. Realistically, sometime in January.
Yep.
Yep. And so next week we're moving on to topics chats because we haven't done that in a while. And we'll start off the round by talking more about Disney. Aside from that, secular D&D is still on hiatus. But keep an eye out. Me and Bree from Brainbug are in talks to have interesting discussions regarding Starship Troopers.
So you're having a discussion about having discussions in which you may plan a meeting. You sound like politicians.
Oh no, we're having, like, we are going to be streaming about Starship Troopers sometime soon, but anything further than sometime soon is yet to be determined. Like, the only reason we were holding off this long is because I wanted to reread Starship Troopers, and I finished that. So,
cool.
Date to be announced momentarily. And with that, we'll move to taglines.
Take care, be good, and if you can't be good, remember, use your noodle.
Have a day, and remember, communication is key.
And remember, the purpose of a storyteller is not to tell you how to think, but to give you questions to think on. Too often, we forget that.